Hello everyone. This is the 26th part of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Chapter 78, Let's Negotiate Part 2. Aden's point of view. I think that's enough of the idle chit-chat. Let's get down to business. Upon the devil's words, the atmosphere in the room suddenly changed. I sat up straighter on the couch, readying myself. It was a talk, but it sure felt like a fight. I had to be careful not to let my guard down and get fucked over by whatever agreement we came to. So, I have something, or should I say a few things you need. He started off. I kept my face blank of all emotion and started singing Wellerman in my head to keep him from reading my surface thoughts. It was easier these days as my mind was much more flexible due to the mental lessons I'd been going through with both Martian superheroes. I didn't want Lucifer to know just how desperate I actually was for any information Galil had left behind. That would shift the odds in his favor and leave me at his mercy. He could ask me to do something incredibly dangerous and I would be inclined to. Lucifer stared at me in amusement. Of course he knew what I was up to, but still, any shred of control I had over the situation, however illusionary, made me feel at ease. Yes, you're right, I confirmed, taking a slow sip of my cup of hot chocolate and savoring it along with my little power play. The devil patiently waited, staring at me in growing amusement. Now I felt like an idiot. I cleared my throat and moved to elaborate further. I need any information Galil left behind. Specifically, his contacts. I believe that he might have stored a digital copy of the files I had somewhere. Lucifer nodded and waved his hand for me to continue. What else? He questioned. This next part was what I was most nervous about. To tell you the truth, it was probably dumb, idiotic, and ill-advised. I also need the method he used to create the meta-trigger essence. Lucifer's gaze turned sharp at that. I hurried to explain before I set off the bloody devil. Just for reference. I know that the methods he used were cruel and inhumane, and I'm not looking to follow in his footsteps, okay? I took a huge gulp of the chocolate to calm my nerves and gather my thoughts. That guy sickened me. I hate people who hurt others for their own amusement, and the vibe rolling off him told me he was exactly the kind of person who likes doing that. I explained, somewhat calmer now. Lucifer's eyes never left my own. Probably searching for deceit or trickery. Not that I could even try to cheat or trick the devil. The guy was known as the ultimate deceiver, and although that title was ironic seeing as he never lied, it didn't change the fact that I was dealing with a being that was over 1 billion years old. The shit he's seen. The liars he's encountered. Nothing could get past him. So the truth was the way to go. Despite all that, however, it doesn't change the fact that what he did was borderline impossible for anyone else. I leaned forward. That bastard was able to not only detect the metagene inside people but also awaken it and turn them into metahumans. I don't know anyone else who can do that. Not even the light with their almost endless resources. The best thing they can do is make flawed body enhancement serums. I had thought it through some more after my encounter with the League of Assassins trio. The fact that Cheshire and her 2 partners were observing Galil's previous base meant that there was something valuable he had that the light wanted. Too bad, Lucifer had taken over. Anyway, I could be wrong, but something told me that the deceased demon had been in a sort of partnership with the light. What the partnership entailed, I had no idea. But my suspicions leaned on it having to do something with the meta-trigger essence. Maybe a fusion of both it and cobra venom to see what the resulting serum would be. Then the devil ruined everything. Poetic justice at its finest. Why? Lucifer finally asked. His voice was soft with undertones of curiosity. I find myself quite interested in your motives behind it. You are already so powerful and your potential is up there with the best. So why do you search for power with such fervor? He wasn't wrong. The abilities I had proved to me time and time again that I could be powerful. Was powerful. Within a few months of my arrival here, I was already strong enough to take on a few of the few Justice League members who had superpowers. If that growth isn't phenomenal, then what is? And it wouldn't stop. The grind was eternal. It was a grand Tao. I took my time to gather my thoughts before answering. At that point, I had already drained the hot chocolate in the cup I held in my hands. I set the cup down and started talking. I realized something. With all my power and strength, I still need someone to watch my back. I can't account for everything. That's just impossible. I stared at him to gauge his reaction. Although I'm loath to admit it, relying on others is a form of strength too. And if I am to achieve what I've set out to do, then I need a crew. A strong crew. A crew that won't hold me back but instead cover my weaknesses. That is what the meta-trigger essence is for. I need to study it and find a way I can replicate its effects without bringing harm or unwanted side effects to the subject. MMH. He hummed. That was honestly very convincing. A mature outlook. One that many before you would have benefited from. Alas, such is human folly. He smirked a little. To be incredibly short-sighted and arrogant of their own measly power. I commend you for realizing that early. The answer is still a resounding no, I'm afraid. Lucifer mercilessly shot me down. I closed my eyes and rubbed my temple. Okay. I was expecting that. His previous reaction to the thing had been borderline disgust. I almost thought he would have not only erased the meta-trigger but also anything associated with it. The building, Galiel's test subjects, even me just for touching it. I am disappointed. I must have given you too much credit, Aden. Huh? He called me by my name. That's a first. Lucifer rose up from his seat and walked towards the window, looking out at the gentle morning sun. The blinds had already been drawn out before I came in. And after sitting down on the couch, the sun rays had buffeted me gently, easing me into a relaxed state. My eyes followed his back as he stopped before the window, looking out into the city. There are many ways to get power. Some are not worth the price you pay to acquire them. Galiel's method includes the use of refining life force from humans and then using that energy to induce an evolutionary process in a subject. However, the ratio is not 1-to-1. How many of your own species do you think it takes to refine one veil of the disgusting thing? He spared me a look over the shoulder and asked. I didn't have an answer, but I dreaded his. I will spare you the number. Saying that, he completely turned to face me. God, anyone else would have looked straight up campy wearing that kimono, but Lucy rocked it. So unfair. See, I'm all for free will and following your ambitions. However, take it from someone who's seen it all, no dream is worth sacrificing hundreds of people for. No matter what it is. It's not worth it. That guilt and resentment is enough to break a man. Has broken countless men. Tainted souls and reduced them to ugly, ugly things. All of whom are suffering down under still. He jokingly added, pointing to the ground. At least according to where the experts say hell is located. He was right. Losing the meta-trigger essence was a huge setback because of the opportunity it presented, but it wasn't the only way. In fact, reflecting upon Lucifer's words about life force, there was another way I could empower those I chose. If that failed, I could go the least intensive way of recruiting already powered individuals instead of creating them. That was the last choice. The downside is I wouldn't have their gratitude or loyalty from the start. All right. I'll listen to you. The meta-trigger essence is off the table. I finally spoke up. Agreeing with his words and realizing just how short-sighted my desire had actually been. Besides, he'd already given me the method. I wouldn't sacrifice hundreds of people to do so, but still, I bet I could trigger someone with a powerful enough source of energy. Whether through magic or something I actually had an easy access to. Energy bending. More thoughts on that later. So, here's the deal. If you want the information you're looking for, you'll have to do something for me first. Equivalent exchange. The Morning Star declared, pulling me out of my thoughts. The door to the room opened and in walked Maze. She yawned and threw a few folders she had in her hands on the table between us. I raised an eyebrow at her, wondering what was going on. "Ah, Mazikeen, right on time." Lucifer nodded. She waved her hand dismissively and walked to the bar, pouring herself a drink. There were many jokes I could make about it being too early for a drink, but, devil in the vicinity, people. Say what you will, but I don't think I'd ever get completely comfortable with Lucifer's presence. As I was saying, this is a trade. If you want the copy of all his information, then you will have to run a few errands for me. The smile he had on his face sent warning bells ringing inside my head. I reached a hand out to the folder and took a peek. The title on the cover instantly gave me a headache and I groaned. Now I knew why he was so amused. The title read, Aden Strong, Demon Hunter. You'll have to hunt down a few of Galeel's associates and boot them back to where they belong. That folder contains all the information you need, courtesy of Maze. I was ready to refuse. Then and there. Dealing with Hell's denizens was something that was not on my to-do list. That was John Constantine's shtick, not mine. But true to his moniker of being a tempter, Lucifer added something I could not say no to. If you manage to do this successfully, you'll not only get what you want, but I'll also give you a personal gift. A gift from the second strongest being of the DC verse? Where do I sign up? Chapter 79, Unexpected Surprise. Aden's point of view. What kind of gift? My curiosity got the better of me and I immediately asked. Nah. And ruin the surprise? Not on your life. He readily shot back. Not sure that's how the expression works, Lucifer. Maze shouted from the bar. I was a little disappointed but figured I would eventually find out when I completed the tasks he had for me. Speaking of which, I started turning the pages and reading through the missions. Then something peculiar happened. Says the woman getting intoxicated at 8 in the morning. Not sure you're the voice of reason, love. Lucifer responded, but I was too busy gaping at the text box that had appeared before me to pay attention to their little byplay. Conditions have been met. Congratulations. Due to the actions of an above 12th level entity, a new system function has been unlocked. You now have access to the mission's functions. You get different rewards depending on the difficulty of the mission. For reference: Easy, 10 training points. Normal, 20 training points. Hard, 50 training points. Hell, 100 training points / a new perk. Nightmare, 200 training points / 2 new perks / 1 unique ability from the Avātār franchise. Note 1, missions can only be issued by others. Note 2, due to the Avātār system being predominantly combat-oriented, only missions relating in one way or the other to battles can be issued. Rescue and support fall within this category. Note 3, only one mission can be active at once. The exception being chain quests, where a number of related objectives can be carried out in a progressive manner. Note 4, some missions might have a time limit. If they expire, you get no rewards. Note 5, once in a while, the system might issue its own missions to aid the ambassador in better establishing himself. Whoa. This was awesome. In a way, I think. There was the very apparent downside to hard capping my points to only 5 categories based on the effort required to complete a mission. It was efficient and laid out really well, but that stole from any fight I found myself in if it wasn't a mission issued by the system. For instance, if I was in the middle of carrying out a mission and was suddenly attacked, I probably wouldn't get any rewards if I counterattacked and won. Suddenly, I noticed just how quiet the room had gotten. Looking away from the text box, my eyes found Lucifer's, which were shining red and boring into me with a burning curiosity and hunger. It was enough to creep me out. The room started feeling hot and suffocating. I tightened my hands into fists and forced myself to remain calm. Subtly, I dismissed the display to the corner of my vision. No one knew about the existence of the system. And if it was up to me, they never would. Fascinating. I detected a Surge. Something hidden even from my own vision. You grow more and more interesting by the minute. I broke contact with his intimidating eyes and looked away. Maze wasn't any better. She was staring at me in this crazy intensity. As if she wanted to dissect me and find out how I worked. It was maddening, and I quickly found myself wishing I was anywhere else but here. Fortunately, the claustrophobic vibe eased up somewhat and Lucifer rubbed his eyes and sighed. My apologies, Aden. I forgot myself and let a little aura leak out. He said, to which I nodded. No problem. Say, would you mind telling your scary sex on two legs of a friend to stop staring at me like a soccer mom looking into a store during Black Friday? And of course my coping mechanism when I'm close to panicking is making lame jokes. The devil chuckled briefly. Don't worry about her, she's just shocked that there's something that can hide from my gaze. I see everything after all. Perks of being, how would you put it? His eyes briefly flashed red. Fucking scary. I gulped and got up from the couch. Okay, this talk is fucking over. I don't feel comfortable to go through the folder with the Halle Berry look-alike watching me like a piece of meat. The less said about His Majesty, the bloody king of hell, the better. I'll go and read through the files to decide which task I should start with. I kept my tone calm and light to hide my nervousness and gathered the folder into my hands. Thank you for the hot chocolate. You gave me a piece of home I so desperately needed. I sincerely told him. Don't mention it. Lucy replied, going back to sipping his own tea from the cup. I absent-mindedly noted that the tea never seemed to end. Devil shenanigans. I'm outta here. I passed by Maze and smirked at the looks she was giving me. Like a cat chasing after a laser point. I am so messing with her. I thought you liked your men, groan. I hurried out, leaving behind a growling Lilim and the devil reading a newspaper of all things. All in all, just a normal day in my life. I passed through the hallway to my room, my heart pumping loudly in my ears. I could keenly remember where it was despite not staying there for more than one night. I opened the door and closed it behind me. Finally, a modicum of privacy. I could now panic about Lucifer coming close to discovering the system because of my stupidity. Fuck. I need to be more careful than that. The Audiobook system was something from beyond the DC verse. Beyond the source wall, beyond Cosmic Superman, the entity that protects DC from, well, practically everything. I had no way of knowing how Lucy would react to finding out I had something that guaranteed limitless potential right here inside his father's pet project. That raised even more questions about me. Like, was I in the Book of Destiny? Was there a record of what I had done and would do just like every other being in existence in this cluster of the multiverse? Too many questions, not a lot of answers. All that showed me was that I couldn't stay here for too long. The more we interacted, the more I felt like trusting both Maze and Lucifer. And to be honest, I was starting to like them. Sooner or later, however, I would let some things slip that I shouldn't, and I don't really know how they would take it. Not to mention, I wanted to be as far away from the angels and demons events about to happen soon. The timeline was following the Arrowverse show canon. Going by Lucifer's comic power level, the baddies he would soon face would be overpowered as well. I ran a palm through my face and sighed. The problem was that I was trying to control everything. And I couldn't. No one can except maybe the devil next door, and he was too much of a do shit your own way, and I'm super chill kinda entity to try that. I was burning myself out by worrying about what-ifs. The best thing I could do at that moment was deal with everything systematically. So I got up from my position and walked to the shower. Not that I was dirty or anything, but the cold water helped me to cool my head and think things through. I came to a solution real quick. After a change of clothes, a portal to the elemental dimension opened inside my room and I stepped through. If I was worried about Maze or Lucifer finding out about the system, then why not just do my things somewhere that would drastically reduce the chances of that happening? I breathed in the fresh air of sanctuary and one word came to my thoughts: tranquil. Sooner or later, I was going to build a house here, it would be my vacation spot. The place I came to think when I got tired of the blue planet. Earth was too loud, I mused to myself, walking and sitting inside a poorly constructed cabana. It was thatched from palm leaves, a sheared-off wood platform that was my version of a table, and the ground was covered with animal hide. It broke my heart to admit I was poor at construction work. I propped my hands up on the table and read through the folder. 10 minutes later I was cursing Lucifer's name. This guy really wants me dead. A prompt from the system caught my eye. Chain quest initiated. Destroy Galeel's known associates 0 out of 5. First mission: famine and drought. A trail of endless hunger. The demon Nemeth is causing destruction in Africa, a cute little country called Kenya, which is roughly the size of Texas. The big bad devil doesn't like that a certain someone is disparaging his name and running his reputation even more to the ground than it already is. So he has dispatched you, Aden Strong, demon hunter, to send this foodie back to hell where he belongs. Objectives: 1. Kill Nemeth or exorcise him. 2. Do so before he calls for some hellish backup and devours the shit out of you. 3. Do so before he crosses the boundary into Sudan, successfully triggering canon events. Time limit: 24 hours. Mission difficulty: hard. First of all, why is the first mission's difficulty put on hard? Secondly, how the fuck am I going to get to Africa within 24 hours and still get the time to locate Nemeth? My boom tube only works for places I've been or know pretty well. I sighed loudly and felt like kicking something upon a sudden realization. I'm going to have to ask Lucifer to teleport me there, aren't I? The only other option I have is to ask the Justice League for passage through the Zeta tubes, and that is never ever going to happen. I mean, they would probably allow it if I informed them it was a matter of life and death. But I didn't want to take that chance. So it was back to the devil again. Oh well, I could use the time left after killing Nemeth to actually tour the place. I hear Kenya is a beautiful country. Time to carry out my first demon hunter mission and hope I survive enough to reach 18. My birthday is only a few weeks away after all. Chapter 80. Countermeasures Baby. Aden's point of view. This time, I pictured the living room of Lucifer's penthouse. I eyed the boom tube ominously and decided to take the plunge. I stepped through and came face to face with Lucy calmly watching me, hands clasped together and feet crossed. We had a bet going on how long it would take you to realize you had no way of getting to Africa and come back to ask for help. He told me in that amused tone I was starting to hate. I turned my attention to Maze. My eyebrows rose up when the Lilim in question brought the glass in her hands to her mouth and swallowed the contents in one move. She slammed the glass back on the table and winced. I lost. She informed me testily, glaring at me as if I was to blame. Explains why she's still drinking though. Not the best start if you want to make a good impression on your customers, Aden. Lucifer innocently said. I narrowed my eyes. This bastard. Then again, I'm the one who left before reading through the mission first. I actually thought you were already in Africa with that fancy portal ability. Speaking of which, he continued. Don't ask me why I share that ability with Vandal Savage. Please. I cut him off. I didn't feel ready to divulge the existence of the elemental dimension. If ever. Normally I would come up with an excuse or lie, but that had zero chance of working on the deceiver. MMH. More secrets. Fine, I won't push you, just as long you keep your end of the bargain and provide me with some fun and turta. He coughed lightly. I looked at him in disbelief. You were totally going to say entertainment, weren't you? Holy crap, is that why you don't want to get your ass up and deal with this demon problem by yourself? Because you're bored? I asked him, gaping in surprise. Maze started laughing at the situation. Lucifer opened his mouth to talk and closed it upon the look on my face. You can't lie, remember? That's your whole deal. I reminded him while crossing my hands. Well, it wouldn't be a lie to say, I find a measure of enjoyment in the absurd circumstances you'll undoubtedly find yourself in during your tenure as my underling. My head buzzed and I clutched the frame of the couch tightly. Maze's laughter increased. Underling? Underling. I muttered lifelessly. Ouch. You know what? I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. To me, this is at the very least a partnership. A partnership based on mutual benefits. I didn't know who I was trying to convince more. Me or them. Keep telling yourself that, kid. Maze responded to my words from her seat. I breathed in and chose to let it go for more important things. The mission had a time limit, and every minute I stood here trading barbs and joking with these two was precious time I could be using to track down Nemeth, finish my mission, and 4 more tasks later, be out of Lucifer's service. I just thank God there were no binding contracts to sign, or who knows if I'd be bound by a clause hidden in layers and layers of trickery. Lucifer doesn't lie, yes, but that just means he found better alternatives to get his way. Back to the mission. I'm going to need a few things, I told them seriously. The joking mood from before had abated somewhat. Lucy motioned for me to continue and I obliged. I sat down and leaned forward, the folder in my hand. Like you guessed, I need you to teleport me as close to Nemeth's last known location as possible. He thought about it for a few seconds before shrugging. Seeing as this is your first task, I'll allow it. However, moving forward, you're on your own. The aim was to make you work for me, not the other way around. He responded and I nodded in gratitude. Thank you, I told him and turned to Maze. The second thing is, I need a weapon. Preferably a long knife or sword. It needs to be durable. Really durable. Something tells me you're the person to talk to. A slow smile worked its way onto Maze's face. I changed my mind, kid, you are fun. General point of view. A nondescript conservation area, Kenya. Inside a cave covered with green glowing moss, a spectacle was about to unfold. An earthquake big enough to register as dangerous in the Richter scale shook the ground surrounding the cave. Some of the lichen covering the walls of the cave as well as pieces of rocks detached and broke off, falling to the ground and further illuminating the cave. On the farthest end, a section of the cave cracked apart, revealing a sealed-off tunnel. Inside the tunnel, a red light started pulsing. The watchtower, temporary base for the team. Aqualad was standing at the end of the Justice League table, while pointing to the holographic visual feed between them. Almost all League members were present barring the Green Lanterns who were off-world. Martian Manhunter who was, nobody actually knew where he was. Just that he had something he needed to take care of, and lastly, Superman who was dealing with the fallout of an earthquake in East Africa. 3 missions this past week. All successfully completed with no unexpected developments. He said, carefully studying the faces of their new overseer and mentors. Commendable work, Aqualad. You and your team have been exceptional. Captain Adam praised. The stoic Atlantean gave a sharp nod and replied. Thank you, Captain, and although your praise is appreciated and welcome, we're not without grievances. Aquaman sighed. He knew what was coming after hearing Calder's words. To put it in simpler terms, you're limiting us. Giving us the safe bet options. Keeping us held up in the watchtower thinking that the marvel of the trust and consideration you have shown us will make us more amenable to whatever you want. That's not going to cut it anymore. No one spoke up to interrupt him because they knew what he said was true. The Flash glanced at Captain Adam and wondered how he was going to handle this. Batman would usually narrow his eyes and tell them in a gruff voice, "You're ready when I say you're ready." The speedster mused, finding himself missing the Dark Knight. MMH. Captain Adam hummed in thought and then looked up. You're concerned that nothing substantial is being done to find your wayward teammate, he stated, cutting right into the heart of the matter. Aqualad looked a little unbalanced at that. The Flash swallowed a chuckle. Okay, the army dude is sneaky. Trust me when I say that the League's numerous resources are being directed to that directive. As soon as anything comes in, the League will keep you ABD the team in the fold, son, and then you can bring him in. Captain Adam concluded, stealing the wind from Aqualad's sails. It was a move that was so unlike Batman that it worked just as effectively as any of the Dark Knight's plans. It's not. Aqualad tried to gather himself and failed. Any argument he tried to make would just be seen as a petulant and immature move, further harming his cause of trying to get more serious missions. Something that the Flash didn't understand. Things were better when there were 0 missions. That was the whole point of the Justice League. To keep the world safe. Serious missions stood in direct opposition to that. Don't these kids get it? Aqualad stepped back and gave the customary salute to his king and nodded to the rest of the League. Thank you for your time. I'll excuse myself. The Flash watched him leave and immediately turned to Captain Adam. You do know that excuse won't work next time, right? The silver-colored face of his colleague showed confusion at Flash's words. Excuse, what do you mean? Captain Adam questioned. Barry and the others exchanged glances. Wait. You mean, you will actually allow them access to any intel we find on the whereabouts of Maelstrom, knowing full well they will want to carry out that mission by themselves? Green Arrow wondered from his seat. Adam took a few seconds to answer, but when he did, his voice was calm, firm, and brokered no argument. Yes. Well, good to see they share some character traits at least. The League just isn't the same without bats. The Flash thought. Let's get on with the meeting. Yesterday, a cache of alien technology was seized from Intergang during a face-off with Superman and Batman. Aden's point of view. Finding a Catholic church in the City of Angels actually proved to be a bit difficult, further adding to how different this Eldade was to my own. The vibe was the same, but most buildings were constructed differently. This wasn't an alternate timeline to my universe, but instead a whole different dimension in a far-off multiversal cluster from whichever mundane one my former planet was. After consulting Google Maps, I found one nearby, just 9 blocks from Lux. The walk there was awkward, and after a while I chose to stick to the rooftops after too many people stared at me like a weirdo. One of them even muttered something about fucking campy cosplayers. I didn't blame them though. I had a new look after all. Not that new really. But the trench coat above my Maelstrom costume and the half mask that covered my neck and lower section of my face made me out to be a completely different person. The trench coat had a hood that covered my head and obscured a direct sight to my eyes. Why the trench coat? 2 reasons. 1, to obviously hide my identity. Being seen in my Maelstrom costume would be like a beacon calling the team or even the Justice League down on my ass. 2, to hide the 2 long daggers I had strapped on my body. Why the long knives? And also why the church? Good question. You see, while I was having that cold shower, I thought of something. Galil as a demon had gone down pretty easily due to me catching him off guard. I had no guarantee that Nemeth on the other hand would also fall just as easy. Considering the fact that the mission itself had been rated as hard in the mission parameters text box, then things weren't so clear-cut. I could very well be dealing with a demon who was impervious or could nullify my attacks. Before I left, Maze had one piece of advice to tell me: not all demons are the same. I took that advice very seriously, and the reason I was here was to see if the priest would bless my daggers and if I could get some holy water. Countermeasures, baby, anything to make sure I reached 18. Something told me the system had something great planned for my birthday surprise. This marks the end of part 26 of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.